we've got our STEM Step Up to HE. Our HE week has been very popular, and we have been doing all sorts of different creative things that have been going on. We've had lots of different HE events going on today, and today is our STEM event. We will be talking through what that is, and we've got Charlene with us today. So this is what we've got planned for today. Why would you want to enter the STEM sector? Charlene will then take over the reins. She comes from Thales Group and is the STEM Education and Outreach Manager. And she will be going through the various pathways into this sector and going through the opportunities of the graduate programme. Then we have Harry, who will be discussing his experience on as a graduate at Thales. And then we'll go through briefly the options after college and how CCG can help you to take you to those next steps. So why would you want to go into the STEM sector? So across Europe, there is actually a STEM skill shortage. So especially with recruiting women into the sector. Climate change and the digital revolution and the pandemic has increased the need for those skills. And what we're finding is nearly 40% of the UK employers are reporting difficulties in recruiting staff with the relevant STEM skills. So you're doing the right thing thinking about going down into this route. For the STEM sector, there are also going to be other opportunities. So they will still need people with business degrees. They will still need people with the relevant skills and qualities that are involved in that. With climate change, people with geography degrees would come into play. So there's lots of opportunities for you to take up on. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Charlene.
Morning, everyone. Right, as Sally just mentioned, my name's Charlene. I work at Thales. So the nearest site for you guys, we have a Thales site in Crawley, which is where I'm actually based. But we are a global company. We're all across the world in 68 different countries, and we work in lots of different sectors. If Sally can just bring up the next slide, I'm not going to talk you through every little bit on here, but just to give you a bit of a feel for what we do as an organisation, we work in 5 big sectors. So we work in space, aerospace, defence, cybersecurity and transport. And across all those areas, we're always looking for new young talent to come into the business. We have a lot of engineering roles at Thales, but like Sally said, we also have a lot of business roles, finance roles, marketing roles. So there's lots of opportunities for apprenticeships and graduate schemes. So if you are thinking that maybe the world of STEM or working for a business like Thales might be of interest, then we will go through some of the different routes into the business. And you'll find that most big kind of tech companies like Thales will have very similar methods of recruitment. So hopefully the information today, whether or not you're interested in working in somewhere like Thales, should be really useful for you. So as I say, we work in 5 big sectors. What's really nice is most of our engineers will work across all of those areas at some point in their working life at Thales. So you're not normally stuck just in one sector or in one job. So you get to move around and kind of rotate around the business, which is really exciting. So there's kind of 3 different routes into Thales. And again, this will be the same for other big businesses. We have a graduate scheme. So this is for students that have recently completed degrees, or it might be a postgraduate degree that you finished. We have apprenticeship schemes, and that can be apprenticeships, as you can see on the right hand side there, from level 2 all the way through to level 6, which is a degree apprenticeship. We have some students that come to us at 16. The majority are coming to us at 18, and then we'll have some that are mature learners that come back at a different stage. We also do internships. So these tend to be weekly placements. So it might be a 6-week placement with us. And these tend to be for students that are already at university, but who are maybe unsure of what to do once they finish. So they can apply to do an internship with us. The majority of internships are paid, but it's always best to kind of research that before approaching a company, because some will be unpaid. So those are the different types of programs we offer. If you could just click onto the next slide, Sally, that'd be great. So we have them in lots of different areas. So for engineering, you can work in hardware, software, mechanical, electrical and systems engineering. And as I say, we also have business and finance roles. So this could be things like bid and procurement, so kind of selecting the right products and buying for the business. It could be that you are working in marketing or communications. So there's lots of different business roles as well that we offer both apprenticeships and graduate schemes for. And then if you just click through again, Sally, fantastic. So I'm sure that you guys know quite a lot about apprenticeships, so I'm not going to give you this kind of word for word, because I would imagine that you've maybe possibly looked into an apprenticeship or have some understanding. But generally at Thales, our apprenticeships are anything from 2 to 4 years. 4 years tends to be if you're doing a degree apprenticeship. So it's normally 1 year longer than you would be doing a kind of standard degree at a university. With all of our apprenticeships, you'll be studying whilst working. And I think that's the main difference with an apprenticeship than if you were to decide to go to university. It's the ability to be able to kind of juggle both things. So if you are someone that's good at juggling, then an apprenticeship could be for you. And there's lots of different delivery modes. So depending on the type of apprenticeship you're doing at Thales, it might be that you do day release. So you might go somewhere like Chichester College 1 day a week, or you might go to a university 1 day a week. You might do block study. So this tends to be you will work at Thales for 3 or 4 weeks, and then you'll go to a college or a university for maybe 2 or 3 weeks to then do a whole module in one go. So that's block learning. And then we also have some courses which are virtual. And obviously this year, the majority of them have been virtual. So even without COVID, some of our apprenticeship schemes were all virtual learning. So again, you need to be quite self-disciplined and quite organised with your time, because this studying will need to be done alongside of your full-time job within the business. Benefits are obviously hopefully quite obvious with an apprenticeship, is that the company pays for your learning. They pay for all of your qualifications. And for instance, if you were doing our software degree apprenticeship, that's with Warwick University. We also fund our students to go and stay at Warwick whilst they're doing their studying and then come back to the business. So any kind of transport costs, accommodation costs, that's all paid for by the company. So hopefully when you're doing an apprenticeship, you feel like you're earning lots of money, you're not having to pay for anything yourself, and you're coming out at the end of it with not only 3 or 4 years work experience, but obviously your qualification paid for as well. If you could just click through, Sally, to the next one. So we also offer a graduate scheme as well, and Harry, who I've got with me today, is one of our graduate engineers. And we offer, again, 3 areas on our graduate programme, so engineering, business and finance. If you're doing a business or finance graduate scheme, that tends to be a 2-year programme, and then some of our engineering programmes will be up to 4 years. They will offer some qualifications again, so there'll be some postgrad qualifications included. But the graduate scheme is also very much about nurturing new leadership for the business. So when we are doing assessment centres, which I'll come on to in a little minute, we will be looking for some of those traits, some of those leadership skills to hopefully then kind of work on and develop once you're within the business. So those are the graduate schemes we offer. And then if we can have the next slide, Sally. And this is just giving you a little bit of an overview again, but I think I've probably just said all of that, which is good. And as I say, there will be a postgrad qualification in there. So for example, if you've been studying engineering and you've come to us to do an engineering scheme, then if you're looking to get your professional qualification, so your chartership, then again, that's something that we can offer. Okay, if we could have the next slide, Sally. So the timeline, this is the bit that's kind of probably the most important if you are thinking about going into some kind of STEM apprenticeship or graduate scheme. So with both options, you will need to be applying for this a year ahead. So very much like you would with UCAS. So at the moment, we are in the middle of our assessment centres for students that will be starting with us in September. So our applications will open again in the autumn, and you'll have a couple of months to have a look at the roles, research them a bit, decide whether they're suitable and something that you want to go for. At that point, when you put in your application, you'll be asked to do a standard application form, but also be asked to submit a CV. And then at that point, once we've read through those, we'll then send you a link for an aptitude test. And with a lot of STEM businesses and kind of companies, an aptitude test is very standard. We do it in the form of a game, and it's quite fun. It's quite nice. You kind of switch off and forget that you're doing a test. But I would recommend that when you're doing aptitude tests, whether it be in a game form or a different style, just really give it some time, concentrate, make sure you've had some sleep the night before, because they are really important. And we will be looking to see how well you deal with stressful situations, how good you are at problem solving. So there's a lot of kind of analysis that goes on in the background, and we will take the top candidates from those aptitude tests that also have a very good supporting application. And then at that point, if you are looking at apprenticeships, we will invite you straight to assessment centre. And if you're a graduate, then we will interview you on the telephone first, and then we will invite you to an assessment centre. There's a few different processes to go through before you get to the stage where we're making you an offer. And we make our offers around the springtime. So students will be getting offers now if they've come to an assessment centre in the last few weeks. And then you will start with us in the September. So that's kind of how the process works. That's the timeline. At every stage of that, I'm always saying to students, make sure you're doing your research, make sure you know what you're signing up for. If you've got an assessment centre and you've got to that stage, ask the business, what does that look like? Is there something I can do to prepare for it? I think assessment centres are actually a really good way to interview for students. I think the kind of one-to-one 30-minute interviews that used to be the norm actually weren't great for students if you were nervous, because by the time you'd got over your nerves, you were out the door. So actually, I think an assessment centre is a really good way to show all of your skills to an organisation or to a business. Our assessment centres before COVID were an all-day affair. You'd come to one of the offices and you would be put through a few different activities. We'd also do a one-to-one interview. You'd get a tour. You'd get to meet some of the staff. And it was a whole day affair, but it gave you the whole day to kind of relax and warm up and get to know kind of what we were looking for. Now, at the moment, it's a virtual assessment centre, very similar. We ask you to do 2 group activities on that, and we also get you to do a one-to-one interview with us as well. So I think it gives you a really good chance to really show yourself and to really kind of show us that you've got the skills for the job. So that's kind of what the timeline and the application process looks like. Sally, if you could click to the next one. Just to give you a feel for what's already been and gone. So these are the roles that we're assessing for at the moment, apprenticeship-wise, in Crawley. So these are roles that some of you guys would be able to apply for if we had similar roles again in September. And our roles don't tend to change a lot. Sometimes we may need more or less of one of those roles, but they tend to be the kind of ones that we get year on year and we're always looking for. So level 6 there is your degree apprenticeship. You've got a level 4 there, which is the equivalent of an HNC or HND. And then you've got some level 3 apprenticeships as well, which we do have some students that have already completed a BTEC or A-level applying for. It might be that you didn't do maybe the right A-levels for that role, so you've decided to apply for a level 3 and kind of take almost like a step backwards. But that's absolutely fine, because that's a great way of still getting into a job that maybe you weren't first looking at when you first applied for your A-levels. So there's lots of different ways to come into the business. With a lot of those roles as well that were based in Crawley, even before COVID, we do offer flexi working. So it might be that you wouldn't need to come into the office every day. Or if you're a hands-on engineer, it might be that you're only needed in a lab or on a manufacturing floor 1 or 2 days a week. So there is a level of flexibility there as well. So for people that are maybe based in Chichester that are listening to this today, don't let that put you off. You know, the train is only on your doorstep. And with some of these roles, you're not going to be required to be physically in every single day. So that's what we offered last year. Graduate-wise, we offered, I think, about 30 places across the UK for our graduate scheme. And apprenticeships, I think we had about 50 places this year. So I think about 80 roles in total. And I'd say probably about 25% of those were based in Crawley. So that's kind of what it looks like most of the time year on year at Thales. I'm hoping I've given you guys a bit of an overview there of what the graduate and apprenticeship schemes look like at Thales. I think it was really nice for you to hear from Harry, who I've got with me today, who is one of our graduates who's recently joined Thales. I'm sure Harry could just give a few minutes overview of kind of why he joined Thales, what he'd done before, and what he's doing now at Thales, and then hopefully we'll have some questions.
That's perfect. Thank you. So if we hand over to Harry.
Yeah, of course. Let me just begin then by saying that I studied mechanical engineering. I did an MN's degree, which is a 4-year degree. And then I was always looking to get into a manufacturing company. And Thales was actually one of my top choices, just because you could be involved with aerospace, space industry, the defense industry, and do different kinds of projects. And I joined fairly recently, I would say, because I joined September 2020. And yes, after you go through the procedure of applying, submitting your CV, getting through your assessment day, which is actually pretty fun. I was one of the lucky few who managed to do it on site. We actually had an escape room. It was really fun. Yes, once I joined Thales, I was placed into the MEMS department, which is basically, we handle the logistics of all the calibration and test equipment around the whole of the UK. So it's a role that involves a little bit of engineering and manufacturing and a little bit of finance. So it's, I would say, the best of both worlds in terms to, in a way to start in a new company, because you can see different aspects of the company in one placement. And a day in my life would usually be team meetings, handling logistics, handling new orders, solving any problems that maybe a calibration coordinator might have in different areas of the UK. And that's a basic overview of what I do and what I've done up to here. So I would really like to open the floor for questions if anyone has any.
I've got a question.
Mm-hmm. Of course.
How easy was it for you to get into a graduate program?
I would say it requires some persistence, because it matters what you have on your CV to begin with. But at the end of the day, if I'm not mistaken, I sent about 200, 250, 60 applications in different graduate schemes and jobs around the world, not just in the UK. I got a few responses, but the key thing is that you have to persist, because sometimes you will get emails back and you will hear good news. Sometimes it's bad news. But at the end of the day, I found out that it works. So it's okay if sometimes you get bad news. I remember I had 2 months that I usually got bad news in emails that you weren't accepted into a graduate scheme. Unfortunately, you didn't proceed to the next step. But yeah, it's okay. You just have to persist, basically.
Brilliant, thank you. We've got a question that's come up. What do you look for? This might be one for Charlene. What do you look for in a graduate, for your graduate program?
Yeah, so I am one of the lead assessors. I've done about 5 assessment centres in the last 2 weeks, so I've seen quite a few graduates coming through as well as apprentices. I would say we're not necessarily looking for the loudest person in the room. I think when you hear the words leadership, you think that needs to be the most kind of noisiest, bossiest person in the room. That's not what we're looking for at all. We are looking for someone that is definitely a team player, and that's why we have a lot of team type activities as part of our assessment centre. I'm sure Harry would be able to say, you will be working with lots of different people. Thales is a big business. You'll be working across different projects where you'll be working with lots of different types of people from different backgrounds. And because we're global, that could be from anywhere in the world. So you must be a really good team player. You need to be great at problem solving, coming up with solutions. Again, a lot of the work is around projects and kind of creativity, coming up with ideas, solutions. So definitely problem solving, definitely someone that's got initiative and can work off their own ideas and come up with their own solutions to things. Confidence, and again, confidence doesn't necessarily mean you're the loudest person, but it means you're happy to speak up. It means you're happy to sometimes criticize, as long as you're doing it in a constructive way. And someone that is just able to get on and get along with others is really important. When we're watching the team activities, so for instance, Harry said last year we did escape room games. We're looking for people that can put themselves out there, that aren't afraid to say, let's try this, have we looked at that? But also showing that you can listen to others as well and be able to take instructions from others and be able to follow them. So a lot of the things that we look for are all about working together, working as a group, good communication. So I think they're probably the key skills that we're looking for. And then if there are some leadership traits in there as well, if you're going for a graduate scheme, then that's a bonus, and that is something that we would look for as well.
That's perfect, thank you. There's another question that's come up. It says, I think this will be for Harry. Mm-hmm. So it sounds like you've had some amazing opportunities. Did you think that you'd be working on these? And what was your favourite so far?
I would say, unfortunately, the thing is, since I joined recently, I only had time to do one placement. Because in the graduate scheme, especially for engineering, as Charlene said, it's 4 years, and the first two you do 4 6-month placements, and then the next 2 years you do 2 long 1-year placements. So up until now, I only had time for one, but I can definitely tell you that there are a ton of different things you can do and different opportunities. So, for example, I work in MEMS now, which is mostly logistics and a little bit of manufacturing. But from April 1st, I will be working on RTI, which is our R&D, research and development site, and I will be doing completely different things. So even if you go into the graduate scheme, either business, finance, or engineering, and you do not know exactly what you want to do for the rest of your career, you have the ability to explore within the company, just because it's so big and so fast, and it has a multitude of projects that you can choose from. And I can tell you that it doesn't matter if you work for the company for 6 months, a year, or 2 years, and you're still in the graduate scheme, you will still have the same, let's say, chance of getting the placement you want. And that might be either on a aerospace program, a more business program, more of a defense program. So you have the ability to explore. I just haven't had the ability to do that yet, just because I've been in the company for 6 months.
Well, it sounds like you've had some amazing opportunities already, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah, I've been involved in good projects, yeah.
Yeah. Can I just add as well on there, Sally, because Harry's right, he's only been here 6 months, but for anyone that does like the idea of that kind of rotating and moving around, there is the option, if you're brave as well, to go to different countries. So we had one of our engineers last year who used to help me on these kind of events. She had the opportunity to go and work in one of our offices in Montreal in Canada last year, because they do a lot of work there in artificial intelligence, and that was something she was interested in. So she was up for the kind of move of going to do her 6-month next rotation in another country. Again, if that's something you're interested in, that again is an option in Thales, because we're a global company and because we can move around like that. So that's another kind of positive of the scheme as well.
That sounds amazing. I've got a few more questions that have come through. Luke has said I'm going to be starting an HND in mechanical engineering in September. Once I achieve this, is it a good qualification to have to join Thales?
Yeah, from a recruitment side, definitely. So with that qualification, you could definitely apply for our level 6 degree apprenticeship. Which one you would want to go for? You're doing mechanical. So we do some level 6s that are more in electronics and engineering. If it's if it's solely mechanics that you want to do, then you probably wouldn't be able to do that purely at Thales. You might have to look at some other businesses and organisations. But if you were willing kind of switch slightly into electronics, then we definitely do a level 6 that would be suitable.
That's perfect. Another question that's come through: what are the major changes happening within your industry at the moment?
Harry, have you got an
Yes.
answer? Do you want? We can both answer this, but Harry, you go first.
Yeah, I think the basic change is that now everyone tries to move into something called Industry 4, which is basically try and connect things and people. So first of all, let's say you want to connect your factory with a very big server so that you can always monitor what it does, even though you might be overseas. So that's what I see the industry going towards. Let's say it's more of a digital, let's say, revolution again.
Yeah, I would say from my point of view, so we've been quite lucky at Thales. Even with COVID, we haven't had to change a lot. We've been quite lucky in the fact that we've also kept the majority of our staff, because a lot of the work we do is connected to defence, and a lot of our contracts are with the Ministry of Defence. A lot of our work is still going on in the same way. I would say one thing that has changed for Thales and a lot of other big companies, and I think this will carry on after COVID, is something called agile working. And if you want to Google it and you want to do some research, it's definitely not a bad thing to have learned a little bit about before you come to an assessment centre or start interviewing for some jobs, because lots of companies are working in this way now. So it's called agile, and basically it's about working kind of as like a strategic group. So every day you have scrums and stand-ups where you all get together and you talk about what each of you are going to be doing that day and how you can all kind of support each other. And it's just a different kind of method of structuring your work and a way of working, but it's really kind of current. Engineers have worked in this way a long time, but now it's spreading out into businesses as well. So I think if you want to do some research on that, knowing about agile working is a good thing for any jobs in the next 12 months.
Wow, that's amazing. Thank you. Another question: what are the common mistakes that people make when they're applying for apprenticeships?
Okay, so I have read a lot of applications over this last couple of years. You need to give solid examples. So when you're saying I'm a great team player, it isn't enough to just say that. You have to give some examples of when you've done that. So if that's something in a class project, something you've done on Duke of Edinburgh, something you've done as part of your football team that you play with, whatever it is, you need to give us concrete examples and evidence of what it is you've actually done and what skills you actually have. You need to have done some research on the business that you're applying for. So you need to know a little bit about the products or the work that that company is doing. And that is something that will come up on your interview as well. So if you can start showing that in an application, that's a good thing. And then really silly things like spelling mistakes, punctuation mistakes. We all make them. I'm dyslexic, so I have to go through things 3 or 4 times before I submit them. But that's a real no-no. You just need to get someone else to proofread it and make sure it's absolutely spot on before you submit it. That would be my ones. But I don't know, Harry, you might know from the 200 odd applications that you had to make. Was there any?
Yeah, I would say that I definitely sent my CV and all the documents I had to send to different businesses, to at least 10 different people that I know, just so that they can proofread it, give me different ideas, and just basically try and make it that much better, because presentation counts at the end of the day. So yeah, if you can do it, please try and get as much feedback as possible, on your CV, on your cover letter, on anything basically.
That's brilliant. Thank you. I think we may have come to the end of those questions now. What I'll do is we'll complete the end of our presentation now, if that's okay, and then we'll go to other questions at the end, if that's okay. Realistically, from here, you have lots of different opportunities, and it doesn't really matter if you decide to go down one route. And you might not think it's for you, because there's lots of different things that you can do. If you would really like to know what you're going to do next, then we do have a really great team in our Progression Plus area at Chichester, Worthing and Crawley. They will be able to help you, so all you need to do is get in contact with them and they will be able to make an appointment for you to do a one-to-one session. Basically, if we can have a look at the different levels that we've got here. So if we start around the level 2 area, which sort of equates to your GCSE grades, you've got level 3 that you can go through to an apprenticeship. You can even start an apprenticeship at level 2. So like Charlene has mentioned before, if you've started an apprentice or you've got different qualifications and they don't necessarily match up to what you want to do next, it may mean that you can start an apprenticeship that takes you a step backwards so that you can move forwards, for want of a better description. So you may start at a level 2 program, so you've got the foundation in that subject so that you can move forward. You've obviously got T levels at level 3, A levels, and diploma and certificate awards, and then you can go on into your degree levels. So obviously if you're studying an HNC, you can go on to your HND and so on and so forth. But it just gives you a bit of an overview of what you can do. If you're unsure, like I've said before, please feel free to make an appointment with Progression Plus and they will be able to help you with any of your career needs. So why would you want to study HE? So basically it's going to increase your knowledge and also going to make sure that you can improve on your employment prospects. People with degrees can increase their earning potential, and it can also develop those life skills. So talking to people, Charlene has mentioned about all the different things that they are looking for in development centres. Most employers will look for those kind of skills, and those are those kind of skills that you're going to be developing when you're going through to your HE qualifications. You will gain internationally recognised qualifications, and there is a certain amount of enjoyment to it. It may not feel like that at the moment when you're in virtual reality, but there is a certain amount of enjoyment. I know that Ashley and Alistair would back that up with when they went for their degrees. So I'm just going to briefly touch on this subject about finance. So if you are thinking of going to university to study, there is ways and means that you can do that, and it means that you can go for loans, but it doesn't mean to say that they are going to be insurmountable for you to be able to pay back. And basically you will have tuition fees up to £9,250, and then you will have a maintenance loan that is mean tested to your household income. And if you're living at home, you can have up to 7,747, and if you're living away from home, you've got 9,203. But obviously, that is means tested to the income that's coming into your household. That doesn't mean to say that it's going to be difficult to pay back. When you get a job, the threshold of having to pay something back, you have to be earning 26,567, which is quite precise. So I'm going to quickly go through this. Basically, if you are earning above that, so if you are earning 29,600, say, you would only be paying back 9% of the £3,033. So it basically equates to paying back £22.75 a month, and depending on what loan that you take up, that will be wiped out after, it is quite a few years, but it is wiped out after a certain amount of years. So depending on what you earn depends on what you pay back, but it isn't insurmountable to go to uni if that's what you are thinking of doing. There are other options. you can get apprenticeships like Charlene has mentioned. And also, if you go into employment, they don't necessarily have graduate schemes, but there are different ways that you can move up through a company if that's what you were thinking of doing. Also, they have different opportunities for that as well. I am going to hand over to Leanne so that she can go through some of the things that they do at Chichester College.
Thank you, Sally. Thank you, Charlene and Harry. That was really interesting. I know some of you on the call this morning are already studying high level qualifications with us and some of our HE, but for those of you who aren't studying HE with us at the moment, you might not be aware that you don't necessarily have to go to a university to gain a degree or to gain a university level course. Now across CCG, so across 4 of our campuses, we offer 30 different university level courses. On the slide, there's just kind of a brief summary just to give you a feel. In the chat box, I've popped a link, so if any of you wanted to have a look afterwards at some more detail about particular courses, you can click on the link and it will take you to one of the campus pages all about HE. In the chat as well, I've also popped a link to a page on CCG Online with lots and lots of resources to support you with all things related to your next steps. So you're more than welcome to have a look at those after the presentation this morning. It was really just to let you know that we do offer a range of university level courses. If STEM is something you're particularly passionate about, we offer this at both our Chichester campus and our Crawley campus. And I'm joined this morning with my lovely colleague Chris, who looks after 2 of our programmes at Chichester. So he looks after our engineering programmes, our HNCs and HNDs, and he's also looking after a brand new qualification which is bespoke to our college. It's been written with Chris and his team and in partnership with the University of Chichester, and it's called Disruptive Technologies. It's a foundation degree, which means it's a level 5 qualification, and it's equivalent to 2 years at university, so it's 2/3 of a degree. So you could stay with us and do a HND or a foundation degree, and you could leave and you could progress. And as Charlene said, you might decide to take on one of their level 6 programs or join a different part of their team. But you could also progress to a 3rd year of university and do a top up to gain a full degree. So Chris is going to tell you a little bit about his programs and what we offer at the Chichester campus.
Yes, so I'm the study program leader for HE in STEM. And as Leanne said, we run 2/3 different courses. So we've got our standard HNC, HND program. So the HNC is the level 4, that's your first year. And then the second year is the HND. And we cover some quite interesting units in that. And we've aimed this as this is a general engineering qualification. So we don't specify mechanical engineering or electrical engineering. We've chosen to run a general engineering course because it allows you to cast the net a little bit wider. We've got kind of diverse industry in this area, and it's not appropriate to focus on one thing or another. So as part of that course, we've got some core units that we cover, and these are things like there's a maths and science unit in that, and these aren't like your typical dry maths and science. These are very much engineering orientated, so they're very, very much applied. And we've got fantastic guy Alex teaching those, who's got some really strong industrial experience. We also cover a lot of the design aspects. So design is so fundamental to engineering. We've got a core unit which is engineering design, and that sits in really nicely with our CAD/CAM units as well. We investigate materials. We look at a more practical unit as well. So we look at mechanical workshop practices. So we've got manual turning and milling as part of that as well. And that sits in nicely with some of the CNC things we look at too. All these things take place in our first year, along with a managing a professional engineering project unit. So that's looking at the more managerial side of engineering. In our second year, so this is our HND year, we cover a research project. Research is very, very important. We look at professional engineering management, embedded systems as well. So that's things like PLCs, and there's a bit of robotics in that. So they can be quite interesting. So that's getting more onto the electrical side of things. We also look at virtual engineering as well. So this is a really interesting unit, and that ties in slightly with our design as well. So that's looking at using finite element analysis and CFD to actually analyze components without actually having to do physical testing. So we use software to do that. There's some further maths as well. Unfortunately, there's no escaping mathematics in engineering. And then we look at lean manufacturing and sustainability as well, being really important in industry today. So that's our standard HND program, and it's really quite an interesting unit. I see a lot of familiar names on the participants list today, so we've got some people that are actually on that program, and it's a really professional atmosphere. All of the students are really involved and got great experience themselves that they bring to it. And an HE program is very, very different to an FE program in the way we all engage and relate, and the research side of things, and it's really quite exciting. So then we look at our foundation degree program in disruptive technologies, and the reason we developed this program was we're at a point in time where the way engineering takes place, the way manufacturing takes place, it has really changed and progressed, and we've got all these wonderful emerging technologies and the great new ways that we can do things, and we've combined some aspects of computing and engineering, and we look at some of those core things that are common with the HND. So we're looking at the fundamentals of engineering, which is the maths and science behind it, and we look at, again, responsible engineering. One of the big buzzwords at the moment is sustainability. We're all concerned about climate change, etc. So we look at those aspects as well. But then we look at some developing technology. So we've got a unit, for example, called Future Manufacturing, which looks at things like additive manufacturing, so 3D printing, laser sintering, all of those really advanced techniques that are becoming more and more prominent, and how they relate to simulation and sustainability as well. Then we look at the application of alternative reality. So we're looking at how we can use things like VR to actually investigate and develop products. Again, we have a look at the management and professional sides of engineering. We look at the commercial aspects of engineering, but we look at integrated technologies as well. So again, this is looking at programmable chips and things like that. We look at research again and work-based learning. We look at programming too, and we've got a full robotics unit involved in there. We look at low carbon technologies, and particularly how they're developing in the automotive sector. And we investigate things like data analytics and cyber security as well. As we move our engineering more cloud-based, obviously that becomes quite important. So we've got a range of different options available to us, and we have a number of students that do the HNC over 2 years because they're actually in employment. So we work with some quite major local employers who we deliver HNC to some of their apprentices, and they will cover that first year over 2 years. And then we've got full-time students who do our HND program. So they do the HNC in the first year, HND in the second year, and then of course we've got our disruptive technologies course as well, which takes place over 2 years. So hopefully that's given you a little bit of food for thought.
That's brilliant. Thank you ever so much for doing that. So we're coming to the end of our presentation now. Really what we are trying to get over is that there are lots of different opportunities for you out there, and we are there to be able to support you in that. So if you need help with CVs, or you need help with apprenticeship programs or applications, or even if you needed to go through mock interviews, Progression Plus are there to be able to help you. You can apply to any of the Chichester College Group HE courses via UCAS, and if you've got any questions about HE subjects, then it can go to he@chichester.ac.uk. So the support is there for you to reach for the skies and do what you want to do, really. Have we got any other questions?
Sally, one's come through about tuition fees. Can I just briefly explain that, if that's okay?
Yes, of course.
Someone's asked about are there tuition fees for HNCs, HNDs and foundation degrees? There are, unfortunately, for all university level courses. They are self-funded, and as Sally mentioned, you can apply for student finance to support with these. One of the advantages with the tuition fees, if you study at a college like us, they tend to be a lot less than you'd pay at university. So our HNCs and HNDs generally are around £3,000 a year less than you'd pay at university, and our foundation degrees are just under £4,000 less. So it's quite a considerable saving. But unfortunately there are tuition fees. We can help you if you need any information or if you need any support about how to apply. Again, you can pop along to the Progression Plus team, or you can drop an email to our HE Dropbox and we can help you.
That's brilliant, thank you. Is there any other questions that we do have? We do have Charlene and we do have Harry here to be able to answer those questions, and it would be good to be able to pick their brains while they're here.
Sally, can I ask a question?
Yes, you can.
It'd be really nice to hear if you could maybe offer just one piece of advice to the students on the call today who were thinking of pursuing a career in STEM. Is there just maybe one piece of advice you could give them?
One tip, just one piece of advice. Oh God, just one.
What's the one thing maybe they could do that will really make a difference?
I think it's hard to just pick one. Okay, well, one thing at the moment that's really apparent in the last few weeks of assessment centres is really understanding the sector that you're applying for. So really knowing what that company looks like, but also kind of about the products and about the businesses that they work with. Your kind of passion and enthusiasm for a particular job definitely comes through when you really know about the industry and know about the company that it is you're applying for. So I think doing that really, really helps. We had a student this week, literally it was on yesterday's assessment centre, who'd been listening to podcasts that we've been putting out and could literally tell you in depth about a product that we've just taken to market last year. And that really blew the managers away, because they were like, this guy really knows his stuff. He's really interested in the things that we make. And I think that really sold it for him with a few of our hiring managers. So there are other pieces of advice, but that's one that stands out this week.
Yeah, thank you. That's really interesting. That's something that we try to encourage, really. It's that commercial awareness. Yeah. And that awareness of their sector. So yeah, that's really nice to hear. Thank you.
There's a question from Luke. Is an HND with a top-up degree a well-respected qualification in the engineering industry?
So it's a really tough question. I have worked at a university. I've worked for an engineering firm now, so I can see it from both sides. I think there's not many businesses that would really scrutinise where your degree came from. They would be more interested in the content and what you studied on it and kind of the other interests that you have around it. There is a thing called like non-bias, which means that when companies are interviewing, they should really just be looking at the kind of content of your CV. They shouldn't be scrutinising where you've studied or where you live or where you've come from. So they try and take some of that away. So I think whether your degree came as a full BSc from Oxford or whether your degree was in two parts from a university and a college, I don't think makes a huge amount of difference. The grade you get will make a difference. So some employers might only want you to apply if you've got a 2-1 or a first, and that will be the grade that you're given at the end of your degree. But I don't think there's many companies out there that would really scrutinise where you got it or how you got it. As long as the final qualification is what they need, and you can still show a real knowledge of your subject and your degree and have that passion and enthusiasm, I don't think that'll make a huge difference.
That's perfect, thank you. One last question. Charlene, are there any areas of STEM that you struggle to find suitable candidates for, and what is a good niche to get into? Sorry, we really are.
No, it's good. It's testing me today. I like it. I don't think there's areas that we necessarily. So actually, no, that's a lie. Bid and procurement. So students with a really good kind of finance knowledge and knowledge around procurement, which is basically a term that means kind of buying in and buying from other companies and manufacturers and things. That's something that some students study on business and finance degrees, and we have had a lack of students with that particular skill in the last couple of years. So knowledge of procurement, if you're going into a kind of finance route, is really definitely beneficial. But I don't necessarily think there's any other areas we've lacked in. I would touch on the fact that there are more roles now in things like environmental science and environmental engineering. And those are roles that we've had for the first time this year, and I think we'll only have more of. One of your tutors earlier just mentioned about like sustainability. Whichever type of organisation you work for now, there has to be more emphasis put on sustainability and where we source our materials from and how we make our products. So I think those types of roles will only increase. So an interest or knowledge in those areas is really beneficial as well at the moment.
That's brilliant, thank you. We're coming up to the time that we're going to be finishing our presentation. So I just wanted to say thank you so much, Charlene, for and Harry for attending today. It's been really informative, and I know for myself I've learned a lot.
Sally, I've just popped in the chat as well for you a link to the careers page at the Thales Group. So if any of you want to click on there, you can check out the vacancies and the apprenticeships and the graduate schemes.
I was literally just typing that. You were on it. You were there. Yeah, perfect. Thanks very much.
You're welcome. It looks fabulous. So so do check that out. There's some great opportunities.
Thank you.
That is brilliant.